Hi, welcome everyone to LiA Houston, Latinos in Architecture. This is our first event of the year, Amplifying Voices, creating change through equity, diversity, and inclusion. This is the first series of 3, so stay tuned for the August series, which we will have panelists from Women in Architecture, Houston National Organization of Minority Architects, and LiA, Latinos in Architecture. As several of you are aware, we had to cancel our event in March due to the COVID-19 situation. And we hope that you and your families are doing well during these difficult times. Thank you for joining us. I will now introduce our moderator, Yvette Herrera Duran with Paige. Bienvenida, Yvette.
Thank you, Cindy. Buenas tardes y bienvenidos. I am very excited to be here this evening with all of you for this great panel discussion full of Latin flavor. It is my first time being a moderator, so both you and I are in for a great adventure. So thank you for being here with us, supporting us. We're very excited that you have joined us to discuss various aspects of the Latin culture and the Latino culture also in architecture. So we invite you to sit down, relax, and if you so desire, grab a drink and a snack of your choice. We wish that we were sharing this with you in person, yet we're very happy that you are in the comfort of your own home. Before we begin, we encourage you to set your phone in a mode that will not distract you. We would like all your attention. And also we want to let you know that there will be a poll of different questions that we would like you to participate in. They will come up on your screen. And as the conversation and discussion goes, if any questions come about to your mind, please feel free to ask them in the chat box that's also on your screen. We will address these questions at the end as time allows it. One of the beauties of Houston is how culturally diverse its population is. We have people from all over the world who enrich our everyday experiences. If we focus on the Latino population, Houston boasts as the third largest US city with approximately 45% of its 2.34 million population identifying themselves as Latino. But let's zoom out of Houston and even further away for a minute. There are over 20 nations in the Americas and the Caribbean that constitute Latin America. The predominant language is Spanish, yet we also have Portuguese and French among other languages that are spoken. Due to the proximity to Mexico and also the long history that Mexico and Texas have, the majority of Houston Latino population is descended or is from Mexico, but our diverse community represents a great number of other Latin countries. As we all very well know, every culture, every race have faced and continue to face many challenges both in their own countries and abroad. As a society, we're constantly growing and learning how to be better with one another in all aspects of life. And one way to grow and to learn is by being interested and what I like to call being curious about other cultures, their languages, their customs, their traditions. So that's why we have gathered here tonight, because we have wanted to amplify the voice of many Latinos. We believe that through interaction, we identify our differences and similarities. We start addressing stereotypes and making people aware and more knowledgeable of our uniqueness and how we also add color to humankind. We are very aware and we understand that to address many of the injustices in our society takes time. It is a very long conversation. It's a marathon. So we do not expect in a very short conversation tonight to solve all these issues. Our goal is to open the doors, invite all those interested to get to know each other. We believe that bringing awareness to all these different issues and having a conversation is the way to become better. And for this, we want to amplify some voices. Tonight, we want to hear from our esteemed panelists, the founders of Latinos in Architecture. We're going to start with Linda Camacho, who works with Kirksey Architecture. Cesar Dominguez with Cuadro Architecture.
Hello.
Ricardo Martinez with Martinez Architects. Bayardo Selva with Create Architects. Welcome.
Yeah.
As you can all see, we all have virtual backgrounds of projects that have been designed by Latino architects. So we thought it would be very fun if all of you, as the conversation goes and as you discover who these architects are, can also add that to the chat. So I think we're ready. And to get started with this conversation, we would like all to hear a little bit about your background. Half of you are born here and half of you are born in Latin America. Now you all live here. And independently of where you were born, the sense of belonging or not belonging to this country, despite being very thankful and happy to be here, varies for each of you. Tell us a little bit about yourselves and your experience of belonging.
I guess I'm going to take that one first, since I have the most nationalities, I guess. So I was born in Mexico City from Nicaraguan parents, and I was raised halfway between Managua, Nicaragua, and New Orleans, Louisiana. So therefore, I carry, 3 nationalities. According to the U.S., I only carry theirs, but to the other countries, I carry 3. So I guess that makes me a little different than everybody else.
Anybody else wants to add something?
I'll go ahead and add a little bit. I was born and raised here in Houston, Texas. My family is deeply rooted in the state of Texas, and so we're very proud of that.
What about you, Linda?
So I'm a first-generation native Houstonian. My parents are from Mexico. This is something I've been struggling pretty much all my life, that sense of belonging. And so I also know that others that are close to me are aware of this. So my mother-in-law recently gave me a book called American Like Me. So America Ferrera, I don't know if most of you know her, from Ugly Betty, she has that same situation where you're struggling because you feel part of this country, but you also long for the other, or you also feel part of that. But then people don't see you that way. Some people think that, for example, with me, they think I was born in Mexico because I'm really strong in my beliefs and in my roots with Mexico. But then I also have family members that say that I want to be white because I tend to, it's like I strive to speak both languages well. So those are the situations that I run into, and that sense of belonging and finding that that it's not easy, but it's also good to know that there's other people struggling. So I would recommend you read that book if you have that same situation. So An American Like Me, and the struggles that we have trying to be part of both cultures.
Cesar, how about you?
Okay. Can you see my image? I'm having issues here, but it looks like, I don't know.
You're blending very well with the background
Okay.
right now. Maybe if you move forward closer to your screen.
Okay. I was born and raised in Mexico, and I think all of us come from different backgrounds. In my case, I came to the U.S. when I was 38 years old, so I was kind of old to actually start a new career here in the U.S. So my family and I, we were all of us went through some issues, because language barriers, cultural barriers, and in my case as well, finishing college in Mexico and just coming to the U.S., it was a completely different scenario just to practice architecture. So I think we made the right decision to move to Houston. So, and everybody's happy. So we're glad to do it.
Sorry, Cesar, before you move on, I think you might have the green screen on, and that's why you're not, your image is not showing up. So.
Okay, I'll work on that. I don't know what's going on.
I'll move on to the second question while you figure that out.
Yes, go ahead.
Let's speak a little bit about the Latin culture. The Latin culture is very rich. As we mentioned before, there are 20 plus nations that have their own characteristics, their own customs, and very important aspect of the Latino culture is that we're very multi-ethnic. We have Amerindians, Afro-Latins, Mestizos, so our racial composition is very diverse. We want others to know how rich and how diverse our culture is. And parallel to that, we, as Latinos too, we have a good amount of work to do to learn about each other, to build each other up. No matter what Latin country we're from, there is one Well, a few aspects that link us all together, and that is the rhythm in music and dance, the colorful arts, and diverse flavors in our foods, all creating a very festive way of life. So what is one characteristic of the culture or the background of Latinos that you would want people to know? And how have you been able to keep the culture present in your lives?
You know, I'm always saying that, you know, Latinos, we bring a lot to the table in many ways. And you know, I'm always saying that we're a little party box, you know, and stuff, with so much culture as far as, like you mentioned, our foods, our music, our, you know, our tropical weather for most of Latin America. But and also, you know, I guess the tenacity, we're, you know, really hard workers, you know, and it's something that we have rooted in us, you know, so it's something that we bring to the table every time we do our work, I guess.
True. Ricardo, do you have something
So
to
yes,
share?
so yeah, actually, I'll actually add on to that. You know, again, like I said, we're deeply rooted here in Texas, and so I will say that, you know, growing up, you know, we did go into Mexico. My father is actually from the Valley in Mercedes, Texas, a little bitty town down in the Valley, and so we would at times walk across the border into Mexico. But really, you know, from now my experience of it, that was not the full experience of Mexico, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess going into high school, wasn't until my 12th grade year that at the time my girlfriend, who is from Guadalajara, took me to Mexico to visit and introduced me to her family. And I would say that over the past 26 years of us being together, you know, I've been able to go down there and really, I guess, you know, absorb the rich culture of the area. You know, Bayardo, you talk about, you know, the party in the package, or how you said that, but, you know, I remember going down there pretty vividly. It's my first mariachi, which is a bar that specializes in mariachi music and traditional shows and folklore type dances and stuff. And you know, of course, learning the origins and actually the dangers of the national spirit of tequila, right? Learned a lot about tequila, and it's derived from Mexico and predominantly in Jalisco. And so, and then afterwards, you know, we'd go out on the street vendors and you know, experience the local cuisine. And of course, that was prior to a lot of the street vendors you see nowadays here and around town. So it was a you know, interesting experience. You know, very lively bunch, and you know, just a great experience altogether. So
Something else that people are not aware of, that Mexico is also a country full of immigrants and the diverse cultures that we have within Mexico. So some people, you'll run into folks that are blonde with blue eyes and light complected, but because we have a population from Eastern Europe, and so there's some Polish there. We also have Southeast Asians and also Middle East. There's a lot of Arabs in Mexico. The same goes with, what's the other culture? Asians, Japanese, and Chinese. So it's something that we would recommend that you go and look more about and look into the history of Mexico and the diverse immigrants that have gone there. And then what's happened, the reason you don't know much about them is because they've actually embraced the Mexican culture. And so all you see is the diverse color that we are. And then you start asking, like, for example, us, the reason I saw this was because I got to study in Mexico. Going back to what Ricardo says, even though we were born and raised here, we only see one part of it, but don't see the full picture of what that is. Cesar, were you saying something?
We're going to tell us a little bit about family, Cesar. You mentioned that something you would like people to know.
Talking about that, I mean, what I think we miss as a family coming from Mexico, born and raised, everybody, all my kids, I mean, they were born there, and we come to this country, and I mean, we're welcome, but as Mexicans and Hispanics, we would like to, you know, every time we do something, we like to gather as a family and friends. And so we're always trying to find excuses, you know, to do the barbecue, have the cerveza, you know, bring the family, the whole family, and just have something. So one of the surprises we got here, it was like the first time one of my kids got invited to a birthday party. The invitation was only addressed to him. So we have to go and just drop him and then pick him up later. Like, well, what's wrong with these people? You know, we don't do that. We just like, we get an invitation to a party in Mexico, a birthday party. I mean, everybody shows up. I mean, you bring your
excuse to gather and celebrate. Yes.
Yeah, and so show up with a 6-pack, you know, and so yeah, it was
a street party.
Yeah.
Yes. So that takes me to another aspect of Latin culture, which is the language. Let's talk about language for a bit. Spanish is the official language of the majority of Latin countries, and that is where the term Hispanic comes in. It's the people who speak Spanish. As much as there is a universal Spanish, the one that is written in the Spanish dictionary that is written by the Royal Academy of Spain, the meaning of many words varies from country to country. And also on top of that, we have our own terminologies. Over time, the dictionary has accepted many of these terminologies or the use of these words in different countries. And I've noticed that next to the words in the dictionary, sometimes in parentheses, it puts the country that it is used in. What anecdotes do you have with language, with the Spanish language?
You know, for me, I'm always, you know, I kind of lost my Nicaraguan accent, you know, from my parents and my family. And I tend to, you know, tag along whoever is my friend at the time. And I guess, you know, with my wife now that she's Colombian, I've been tagging on to her Spanish. But, you know, one of the quick anecdote is, you know, I went and visited my girlfriend, I guess, at the time before we got married. And, you know, I was trying to say, I'm very excited to be here. But of course, I think in English, and when it comes out in Spanish, you know, estoy excitado de estar acá, it doesn't sound that way. You know, it takes on a sexual connotation. Yes. And everybody just looked at me like, what's going on with this guy? But so there is so much language, and there's a lot of differences in how we say things, or what it takes on different meanings or different connotations or so. But you know, it's what makes us really interesting. You know.
So I have a coworker who's Venezuelan, so hopefully she's listening. And sometimes we have lunch together, and I might take something spicy. And in Spanish, I know that when you have spicy food and you're burning hot, you say enchilado. And I would say, estoy enchilada. And she would say, what do you mean? And so I didn't understand, because I thought everyone that spoke Spanish knew what enchilado meant. So I come to find out that in Venezuela, it's not a word that they have because they don't eat spicy food. And so that's the other stereotype that in my side I do, because I also thought everyone from Mexico eats spicy food, and I find that my cousin does not. So you start learning different things. There's also this comedian that I would recommend you listen to. She's from Venezuela, Joanne Hausman. I don't know if you've seen her. Look up the popcorn. So in Latin America, there's several words to call something. So popcorn is one of those that has several ways of saying it in Spanish. Also, the straw is also said different ways. And so there's a lot of them. So I would just recommend you look up.
Different ways that we don't know from one another, which is funny, because I may say popcorn and somebody else may say, what are you talking about? What are
just
you
like
referring
ice
to?
Cream. You would think that everyone says nieve, but they say helado in Colombia. So things to know. It's fun to learn all these different words that are used.
Yes. And for those of you that were born here, I think another aspect that it's important to talk about is that there seems to be a rejection to wanting to speak Spanish. It can be seen as not being at the same level as the rest of the population in the country. And it is in our adult life that we start seeing the huge benefit of being bilingual or having learned our own native language. Did you experience this conflict, this internal conflict as you were growing up?
So I think I'm the only one on here that obviously growing up, we were not taught Spanish. Actually, we were, it was not taught Spanish for a reason. My grandparents actually went through a lot of hardships through school, and then ultimately through through an adulthood through work. And so because of these hardships, and I guess these disadvantages that they incurred, they took it upon themselves to, I guess, to not enforce or promote Spanish to my parents. My parents were still bilingual, and but going forward, my parents took it a step forward, and in our household, along with a lot of that we just were not taught Spanish, and so I think it was in my mind nowadays it's a poor choice of doing that, but it was. My grandparents, they suffered in the workforce, and for instance, my grandmother, she ended up being into a domestic type of scenario, doing house cleaning, things like that, domestic services, rather than a traditional job. After my grandfather's passing, she was not afforded the ability to go out and get a normal job because of her language barrier. Mm-hmm. And then part of it was a stigma. It's broadly out there from society that the Spanish language and people that speak it are predominantly in a socioeconomic position of lesser than, I'll say, the norm. And so again, throughout both my parents, my grandparents, that was enforced upon us. Us as parents nowadays, we actually promote both languages to my son. My wife speaks Spanish to him, as well as my wife's mother, in order to promote the dual language. So
that's
right.
right.
I know that we end up experiencing the opposite. So you're trying to learn English and speak it properly, and but then your family thinks that you're a coconut, so you're brown on the outside and white on the inside. And so it's this struggle that we run into this situation. So the first time that someone called me a coconut, I did not know what they were referring to. And I was shocked because I don't think of myself as being white, because I feel like there's a long way for me to consider me white. So yeah, different situations that we run into ourselves.
And Linda, actually, I would add to that. Actually, in college, like I said, a lot of people called me coconut, and I didn't take it, as a derogatory remark. And even my college buddies listening, like I said, they were always calling me coconut and coco and things like that. So,
so let's speak of the gender in Spanish. The gender in Spanish is determined by the A for female or the O for male. And up to the early 2000s, the majority of profession names were masculine. The reason for this is that men were the ones in these professions for a long time. So as the women started entering the workforce, there was no feminine name for the profession. So what do we mean by this? For example, if you are an architect in Spanish, you would be, even if you're a female architect, you would be an arquitecto. You wouldn't be an arquitecta. And in the dictionary, for a long time, it was only the male version. Now, thankfully, this has changed. And in I believe it was 2004, the term Latinx was introduced as a gender-neutral term used in lieu of Latino or Latina. So what does it mean, Linda, for you, for a woman in a world that's already male-dominated? And now it's also dominated in the language.
So I think for me, you could say that it was great growing up with my father, because he's the perfect macho Mexicano. And so I was constantly having to prove myself that all of the things that he grew up saying, you do not invest in women going to school. These different, even to this day, he still says that I selected a career that's meant for males, and that it actually states it on there. And then it's true, because my diploma does say, or my degree says arquitecto. I know that when I was actually able to work in Mexico for 6 months before returning to the United States, the construction workers, they would, once they saw that you understood the architecture work, they had respect to you, and then they started calling you ARQ, A-R-Q. So over there in Mexico, if you're a professional, you're always addressed by your professional name. So I was Arquitecta Rosalinda. And then they would say in short, ARC. And so that's what I ran into there. And here in the States, you run into certain situations where I see it more with superintendents that might feel uncomfortable. I don't know if it's because I'm female or Hispanic or both. And you always try to think the best of it and say, well, maybe they're just uncomfortable because they haven't worked with a female before. So this is their first time and they're learning how to work with me, so.
Well, this leads us to an aspect of the Latino culture that has identified the Latino culture for a long time. It's a very male-dominated culture, despite that matriarch being the foundation of the family. Though this has been changing in the recent generations, but it was engraved in many generations, and that's where the terms macho and machismo come from. As male Hispanics, how have you moved away from this?
So again, being here and my wife being from Guadalajara, you know, in her household and growing up, there was a machismo attitude or culture. I actually tried to pull it off and didn't go so well. She told me to take trash out and shut up. So, but going back to Mexico, we'd go down there, you know, at her grandmother's house, she was actually expected to serve, I guess, myself along with the other males at the table prior to the kids eating. And then lastly, the women would actually sit down for dinner. So it's still there. And, but like I said, it is, I think, it's changing. And I think for the better, as women are equal to men. And so, but we did see it. It was pretty evident when we went down there.
Yeah. And Linda, you mentioned already a little bit about this, that not only are you Latina, but you're also a woman. So this has had an impact on your professional growth.
Yes. So I know that I feel that some situations I have to work a little harder because I don't want people to use it as an excuse that I'm female or Hispanic and that's why I'm slacking. So I'm probably my worst enemy. Try to push myself and work harder. That way I don't give that opportunity to anyone. But I've been in situations where I am in, and it happens mostly in construction, and that's where I've noticed. Been in a construction meeting, and it's all male, and the general contractor starts introducing people, and he literally jumped me and went around. So once they finished their introductions, they were going to start the meeting, raised my hand, and I introduced myself, and then we started the meeting. But you wish those things would not happen anymore. But then you just never know when you're going to be thrown a curveball, and you just work through it and just keep proving yourself to everyone.
You know, it definitely has always, you know, been, well, for the most part, a male-dominated profession. But you know, it's changing and evolving, and it's so fantastic that, you know, you see more women architects out there with prominent roles, because they bring a lot of sensitivity to what we do. You know, and in Latin America, you know, they've been present for a while. I mean, in Brazil, Lina Bobardi, all the way to today, Tatiana Bilbao or Frida Escobedo, or, you know, they're making huge impacts in architecture today, and we need it, you know, and I think it brings a lot of beauty into architecture.
Yes.
I think we should have Cindy send out the link of the Latin architects. I know I sent that out yesterday, so that would be great to share it with the panelists so they can learn more about Latin architects, female architects. So,
okay. Okay, so for generations, Latinos have lived in North America before the United States was established. Families were divided when the borderline moved, and stereotypes of Latinos started to emerge. One of the many assumptions made is that Latinos are uneducated. So that remained ingrained about our culture. Now, times have changed, and so has the world. Latinos come to the States for different reasons, and the status of them has also changed. You now have more professionals coming in, those who have come to study, and those who have come as labor workers in desperate search for a better future or even for their safety. Oftentimes, people's education and experience are discounted based on their backgrounds. Assumptions are based on many different things: their gender, their hair, their race, the car you drive. So a question for all of you is, how have you encountered a situation where, have you encountered a situation where assumptions were made based on the color of your skin or any of the mentioned ones?
So I've had two, and those two have been with the immigration. So coming back to the United States, because everyone knows the situation in Mexico with the current cartels and everything. And when traveling and coming in abroad, you know how you have to go through the kiosk and it prints out the sheet, that piece of paper. So I was constantly getting an X. So I would have to go get checked. So one time I asked the guy, why, it's like, am I on a list? Why am I always getting these? And he told me, oh, because your name is Hispanic. You have a Latin name. And I felt sick because I did not feel part of this country, even though I was born here. Because I have a Spanish name, I'm going to be seen as under this category. The other time, again, I was traveling by myself and immigration was looking at my passport, and they constantly saw that I had all these stamps from Switzerland. And he's like, why do you have all these stamps? And of course, they don't know my husband is Swiss, so we travel almost once a year there. But he made it sound like it's impossible for you to be traveling there. Why are you going? Then just assuming it was vacation or something like that. So those are situations that make you feel uncomfortable and not part of this country.
Yes. Let's talk about Latino architects in Houston. As we have mentioned a few times, the census estimates for 2019 that the Houston Latinos are 45% of its population. If we look at the AIA Houston numbers, only 12% of its members are Hispanic and 7% are registered Latino architects. Of course, we know that not every Latino who works in the architecture field is necessarily registered with the AIA, and some are members but are not registered, and also others are working in their licensure. Therefore, they're not all reflected in these numbers. However, the listed numbers are still very low. Why do you think there is a lack of representation in our field?
I can answer that. I think all of that, and I have lived that with my kids, is that everything starts, I mean, with us as being Latinos or Hispanics, we don't get the same support or advice as other ethnicities. When my kids were in schools, they were trying to get to college. I mean, they didn't find the support necessary just to, and advice, just to go ahead and just move on and get to college. I mean, we all, I mean, as his parents, I mean, we're from another country. We don't have the same kind of education here that you have here, or the same system. So for us, it was very difficult. It was just like reinventing the wheel and trying to teach them to do something, and like getting the grants, getting the scholarships, you know, trying to find financial aid. I mean, for us, it was a hassle. And we can see other people, I mean, you live in here in the US, or you have always lived in the US. I mean, you know exactly what to do or where to find it. But I think that's pretty much the main reason, and that Hispanics don't find the support to move on and move to the next step, and not just finish high school and then just find a job as a server or a technical job. So, I mean, I think that's where us as Latinos, we want to push the new generations to just go ahead and just move forward and take it to the next step, and just try to finish college, become a professional, and to raise that percentage that you're mentioning.
Yes. So all of that points at the clear need to have an extra push, in our case, for Latinos in architecture. And I know that the four of you have been working for many years together to be able to achieve this goal. Tell us about all these years that you were working behind the scenes on making this committee a reality, and why is this committee necessary?
We, the four of us, we used to be part of another association. It was Houston Hispanic Architects and Engineers Association. That was like, I don't know, like 10 years ago that Linda, Ricardo, and Bayardo and I joined. We found that there was a lack of participation from architects, and it was pretty much all biased towards engineering. So we wanted to do something that it was more focused, like in architecture and for Hispanic kids, and try to help them out. Then AIA invited us to the Houston Hispanic Forum at the George Brown, and we did it there, the career day. We have done it for 6-7 years, and we start talking about that and becoming and starting a new chapter of LiA. We learned that Dallas, San Antonio, and Austin, they already have a LiA working there for years, and Houston was lacking one. So we mentioned this. Bayardo had a sort of a connection to the board or with AIA, and actually Bayardo was the one who started the negotiations with AIA. And that probably Bayardo can just give us a little more details about that.
Yeah, I mean, it really happened where we were doing one of these Hispanic Forum education days, and we just happened to get on a conversation with Jennifer Ward. That it would be good to have all these people that showed up once a year to participate in this event, to create a committee about it. So really we did a lot, but it wouldn't have been possible without Jennifer's help.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
So tell us about the goals of Latinos in Architecture, LiA. What are the goals?
So we have 2 main branches within LiA. And the main one is, well, both are really important. The focus of our committee is to help out the community. We've also always said that Latinos in architectures, you do not have to be Latino nor an architect to be part of this committee, just willing to want to help out the community. So the reason we came together was because we wanted to give back to the community, help the students out, provide mentorship to these students. It's always great to have someone that can relate to you and have these discussions that they're going through what you lived, and maybe having someone there, you can guide them and jump some of the steps and help out with the hoops that they have to go through. So that's so we have an outreach community program, and we also have mentorship program. We have 3 levels of mentorship program. We start off with middle school, high school, and then that's one group of committee. The other committee is the collegiate university mentorship program, and they're also working with the scholarship program that we have. And then we have the foreign architect mentorship program, because we know that in our country, we have people coming from all over the world, and even those that are trying to take the ARE, the different steps and process that you have to take, well then, as a foreigner, there's even more. So we have a group that takes care of that and has developed a step-by-step process and to guide, and hopefully this coming September, we'll have a presentation on that in English and in Spanish for those that are foreigner architects and trying to figure out how to get registered. So that's one of the branch. And then the other branch is reaching out to the community. So we want everyone to embrace our culture, but how are you going to be able to do that is by learning about it. And that's the main goal of this second branch, is teaching everyone about the Latin culture.
So in that second branch, how do you bring together all the aspects that we have been talking about? We talked about language, culture, cuisine. How do you do that?
So we have our, so within that second branch, we always try to highlight the architecture, so the Latino architecture. We try to bring in Latin artists, talk about Latin cuisine, music, and language, and these events are held in September. It's really important that we focus on those different cultures and try to bring information that we're not aware of, even within ourselves, that we're learning from the rest of our group. I also wanted to list the amount of Latinos that we're representing right now within LiA, but I know we don't have that, and it's something that we can send out and let everyone know how many Latin cultures are within LiA right now.
Well, that's very interesting. We definitely have learned a lot about LiA. And at this point, since we've talked quite a bit about the culture and Latinos, we want to open it up to any questions that the audience may have, or even go over the answers for our backgrounds for the architects in our virtual backgrounds. So Cindy, do you want to help us with this?
Yes, we can maybe do the questions first. So the first question is, do you ever feel pressured to speak on behalf of all Hispanics by people with limited understanding or experience on how varied Latin culture is?
I think we do. That's why we created this committee, because we find that there's no voices for folks that feel that don't have ways of reaching out to people and figuring out things. And where we noticed this was at the Houston Hispanic Forum. We would present architecture to students in English and in Spanish, and you would see that the Spanish speaking part was the parents. They were trying to figure out, like what Cesar just discussed about with his children, trying to figure out the process and the steps and the scholarship. And sometimes they feel like it's something that it's not achievable, so they give up and walk away. And that's why we came in trying to set something up and help them and guide them that it is possible. And so when they see people that they can relate to and speak the same language, they open up, and you can see that twinkle in their eyes and even in the children. And that's what gets us emotional and passionate about what we're doing. And we spread this passion to the rest of our LiA committee. We do have a good gathering of number of committee members, and each one is tackling a different branch, taking care of different groups. Bayardo, were you going to say something?
Yeah, you know, I think it's one of the things that I'm really, really proud about, you know, LiA up to now, is that we're seeing young emerging professionals take over some of the you know, the subcommittees that we have and become leaders of their own, and it's been fantastic to see them grow. And I don't know if they would have that experience if we wouldn't, you know, if this committee wasn't present. And again, you know, going back to the formation of LiA, you know, another thing I forgot to say that I think that broke the doors open to us, because I think that we need to give credit is to the Wiia Committee, to Women's in Architecture.
Yes.
You know, after their success in their committees and their show, I think it really made it a lot easier for us to form LiA.
And the other thing that we do with LiA, which is really important, we all work really hard in our day jobs, and we want to help out the community, but we also want to have fun. So when we started our first gathering, or when we were even meeting, we made it a point to meet at a restaurant and meet at different Latino restaurants and enjoy the cuisine and a drink. And so that was one of the goals, is to have our committee meetings at a restaurant. We didn't know how big our response was. So our first meeting, we had 50 people. We were at Picos, and I was just afraid that we were not going to fit in that room. They kept bringing in chairs, and we were without tables. So I know Rusty was excited. Well, actually, you can see he was shocked, because he's like, there's a lot of people I don't know that I haven't seen or met. And also, we went around the table asking everyone where they were from. And yeah, that was interesting and great to see that Latinos were being represented in that meeting. So we tried it again. It came to a point that we were not able to meet at restaurants because we were so big and large. So we met at our Kirksey office, and then with COVID, we've been meeting on a monthly basis via Zoom. And so we meet on the third Monday of every month at 6 o'clock. And one day, hopefully, we'll be back together and have these fun events in person, so we can bring a little bit of, what does Bayardo call it, a party in the box?
Party in the box.
A party in the box.
So I think that answers the other question. How can we join these committees, and when will they start, per se, with all the COVID going on? So I think if emailing Jennifer or providing your email if anybody's interested, because I think there's been
And the committees are still happening, and I would advise, you know, I like seeing all these people, you know, not only through LiA, but now that they're involved with LiA, to get involved with other committees through, you know, in AIA. It's one of those things that I thought would be interesting, is to kind of see, you know, how many people could join the other committees and become part of them, you know.
So we are in need of mentors. So if you want to mentor programs, I know Texas Can Academy has approached us. for their school year. They teach Revit, and but they want mentors, and we need at least 2 mentors per student. And it's something that if you are interested, go ahead and email Jennifer, and then she'll send you the information so you can join our committee. And like I said, as long as you want to help our community and give back, you do not have to be Latino, you do not need to speak Spanish, nor be an architect. All you need to do is be willing to want to help the community. That's our main goal. And then also learn about us. We're all different and diverse, but we all love having fun and enjoying each other and chatting and drinking and eating.
I know we need to wrap it up here soon, but we do have a few more questions. MJ asks, how can the AIA National Office be more supportive of LIA or Latino Hispanic architects? Are you aware of the AIA National Scholarships available for underrepresented groups?
I don't think we were aware of that. And I think that's, that came from Marcia, right?
Yes, Marcia. MJ Kelly.
Before we start LiA. Yeah, I don't think we were aware of that, but I mean, I'm pretty sure we're going to pursue that.
Yes.
You know, and we're going to get some money from you. That's gonna be a goal.
Something that we had a lot of guidance from MJ from Houston AIA National, or sorry, AIA National and AIA Houston, and also LiA. We spoke to several people about this before we created our mission statement and our goals. Wanted to bounce back our ideas with them, and then this is how we came about.
And actually, LiA San Antonio was probably the most supportive with us. We got a bunch of conversations with them, and they gave us a lot of guidance, how they started, how they work, what are their goals. So I think we learned a lot from them.
Yep, and then also Jennifer helped us out a lot, and Rusty. So we have a lot of people to be thankful for our committee, and then everyone that's part of our committee that's working hard, helping out these communities.
And then Erica has a question. I would like to know if, as a Latino, it's more difficult to apply for a master's degree in the USA with the current immigrant policy.
So I wish Luis Herrera was online. We actually literally saw that yesterday at our meeting, the 2 rows and categories. I don't think it's harder. Even Diego, who's actually one of our recent members who just graduated from UT and is from Venezuela. So just go ahead and send your email to Jennifer, and we can connect you with the group and give you information. I don't think it's hard. It's just knowing the steps and the process, and Diego and Luis can help you.
And we are striving to get that online, so hopefully it's up there to AIA Houston fairly soon.
I think bottom line, I mean, I don't know if we're going to just close this, but LiA is here to help anybody who needs help to come from another country, because it's an architect that needs guidance. I went through that. I know how difficult it is. And, or even if they just want to find, I mean, even if it's not in architecture, people who wants to know a little bit more of our culture, and pretty much it's all about help and help other people and having a good time as well.
And again, we're an open committee. This is not just for Latinos, and we have relationships with with NOMA and Wiia, and I mean it's a very, very open. We really, our idea was, one of our ideas was to celebrate and expose our culture, and that was just it.
So hopefully you can join us. September and October is our main event for Hispanic Heritage Month. And so like I mentioned earlier, the goals that we try to hit in those months is have Latino architects. So yesterday we reviewed the list of people that we would like to invite, and hopefully we can bring and have them as panelists. It'll be a session of like a symposium throughout those 2 months. So Latino architects, highlighting Latinos within Houston in architecture here. And also artists. I know there's a lot of Venezuelan artists here in Houston, so we can bring those. If you know of a Latino artist and you can email Jennifer that we would have an invite to the panelists in September, October. We're also doing cuisine, so hopefully we can have Patagonia Grill. So everyone noticed that in March we had to cancel our event. So hopefully the Argentina night will continue in September, October. I know it won't be the same, so those are the challenges that we're having to run and figure out new and fun ways to have our events virtually. So keep an eye out for those. And the other things that we do, just like this, is amplifying voices. I know Yvette and Cindy have mentioned in August, we're gonna have our second series of Amplifying Voices with women in architecture and HNOMA, so you can get to hear what they do and also the things that they've run into. And that's just opening the doors and having everyone here and learn about each other. And then in September, we would like to invite all of LiA, hopefully LiA, even including San Francisco, all of the United States LiA, so everyone can hear what they're doing as well.
I think we have time for one more question.
Yeah.
Or possibly two, so let's address those.
Okay, great. So I think two of the questions are really about representation in the collegiate level, and so Latinx professors. So how can LiA or others in the industry help diversify faculty in colleges to better represent their student body? And related to this is any advice for anti-racist initiatives forming at the collegiate level?
It's like no one's jump in at once. That's a difficult one. I know it's something that we might have to then discuss with the universities and approach them. We've been having discussions with HCC, working together, and it's something that we've also had discussions with U of H, and it's something that this is where information like this is meaningful, where we take your concerns and questions and then take them up to the next level, those that can help us answer them and approach the necessary folks to start making change.
And again, we're open, so we do welcome, collegiate students to come in and participate with us. That would be fantastic.
We do have, remember, we have Nix and we have other members from U of H attend our meetings.
Another question, as a recent graduate who is under DACA, is there any resources or plans you all have for these types of students? Is there a focus from the committee for these types of individuals?
So that would be part of our foreign architects mentorship program. And so we've tasked them with a lot of things to do, and we've told them that during these moments of times, we've actually been asked from several people different questions or similar to this, because we are getting a flux of folks coming into this country, and they want to work and they want to figure out how they can go about doing that here. So it's something that the Foreign Mentorship Program Subcommittee is working on.
Yes,
so,
Linda,
like,
I think that was DACA. It's not.
Yeah, but we could, that falls under that program. I know Luis was looking into that situation, so we can add it. So things like that can be added to our discussion, but he can also join and have the discussion at our meetings. Great.
And I think one of the other questions, everybody wanted to know the backgrounds. We did have Florence, Laura, and Erica guess 3 of the backgrounds, but I'll just review all of them. So Yvette has Tatiana Bilbao, Los Terrenos. Cesar had Ricardo Legoretta, the San Antonio Central Library.
Went away.
Yeah. Ricardo had Santiago Calatrava, Milwaukee Museum Edition. Bayardo, Palacio de Alvorada. Oscar Niemeyer, or the Brazilian Presidential Palace. And I have Luis Barragan, Casa Gilardi.
Did you say mine, Cindy?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I missed, yeah.
Yeah, Linda has Juan O. Gorman, Biblioteca Central de la Universidad Autónoma de México.
Very good. Well, the questions have been very interesting and the conversation has been fabulous. So I think it's time to wrap it up with a few minutes that we have left. Tonight has taught us a lot about your personal experiences. Before I say our final words, do you have anything else you would like to conclude? This is your last chance.
Join our committee. There's
I would just say yes, it's open doors.
there's a lot of work to do. People have reached out to us. Like I know we didn't mention West Street Recovery, Texas Housers. Folks are still hurting from Harvey. They haven't had repairs done. And you have these organizations reaching out to us trying to figure out, okay, how do we help them out with these bottlenecks? And there's people just at the point where like, we just want to get this done and we don't want to deal with bureaucracy anymore. So please help us. So I know we have lots to do, and AIA has a lot of committees, so we're going to be reaching out to several of our fellow committee members within AIA to help get assistance with this, because there's a lot of work and we're not that many in our committee. We do have a lot, but not as much as what's needed to take care of what we've been asked to do.
So Ricardo, Bayardo, Linda, Cesar, thank you. Muchas gracias for being here with us today. Your personal experiences have taught us the importance to be open to listen to each other, because we all have a story to tell. And it also teaches us not to be quick to judge, both within our culture and also other cultures. We as Latinos shouldn't compete with other Latino countries. And also we shouldn't think that we aren't worthy of succeeding like others. If we continue with these ideas, then we will never end discrimination and racism. We need to embrace the culture of the United States. We need to understand it and we need to adapt to it. But we don't need to set our roots aside nor see them as inferior. We also invite everyone from the US and any other country to embrace the various cultures that exist side by side in this country. We all have something to offer. We have a voice, we have skill, we have knowledge, and we have power. The question is, for you, for me, for all of us, how are we using these qualities? We invite everyone to use our voices and power to lift one another up, to lift our communities, to rise above our differences, to learn from them, and celebrate what makes us all unique. Your voice is a gift. Use it. We are all ready to listen to you. So before we wrap it up, we want to remind you that this event is the first series of 3. Our second series panelists will be with Women in Architecture and the National Organization of Minority Architects, Houston chapter. And they're going to be sitting down with Latinos in Architecture. We're very thankful and very excited to Isa Forgy and to Damian Hines that they're going to be part of our panel. It is time for our voices to be heard and for all of us to start the conversations. It is time for change. So thank you all for being here. Thank you to AIA Houston. Thank you, Jennifer, for all your work. And see you next time. Have a great night.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night.